queen conch has been used for centuries across the Caribbean as both a food source and building material. As of 2004, Turks and Caicos catches about 22% of the total queen conch biomass, an enormous sum for such a small island nation. Our study took place in South Caicos, where approximately 70% of the population is reliant on the queen conch industry to sustain their families. On South Caicos, fishermen must be longtime inhabitants on the island and collect conch out of small fiberglass boats by freediving to depths of 15 meters. Once the conch are brought on board, they must be knocked, a method by which a hole is hammered into the shell and the meat separated from the shell using a knife. Fishermen in South Caicos do not often transport knocked shells back to port and will instead throw the shells back into the ocean. These piles of queen conch shells generate what is called a midden. Across South Caicos and the wider Caribbean, many fishermen claim that conch middens drive away healthy, live queen conch, a phenomenon we will refer to as the Midden Hypothesis. In our experiment, we set out to see whether there was any truth to the legend. To test this hypothesis, we generated two experiments, one analyzing the long-term effects of middens, and the other investigating the short-term. The long-term experiment consisted of 3 separate treatments at 3 different sites. A knock treatment with a pile of conch that had been knocked between 12 and 24 hours previously, a bleach treatment with a pile of conch that had been bleached by the sun, and finally a control site, where the only manipulation was placing a buoy attached to a cinder block to mark where the treatment was. We surveyed sites at least 7 times over the course of the experiment, using rope connected at the center of the treatment and following it around for a full 360 degrees. While following the rope, we counted the number of live queen conch in the area and created a small notch on the lip of their shell to indicate that they had been counted. This picture is a graphic representation of what the notching system looked like. Additionally, notches in the shell regrew within a couple of days, so no test subjects were harmed during the experiment. By following this notching procedure, we could analyze the movement of individual queen conch between treatments over the course of a month. We also ran a short-term experiment to test the reactions of the queen conch to the scent of other dead conch. The first portion of the experiment was run in a small plastic pool. Both sand and fresh seawater were added to create a simulated natural environment for the conch. 3 conch were collected and individually put in the pool one at a time. For each of the conch, we tested their reactions to dried up conch meat, wet conch meat, and a control. Each of the treatments were put in a tea diffuser to allow the scent to disperse. We started by giving the conch a 30-minute resting period and measured how far they traveled during that time. Next, the treatment was placed next to the conch, and their net movements over a period of 30 minutes were recorded. The second portion of the short-term experiment took place at Family Beach, on the coast of South Caicos. 3 juvenile conch were brought from the nearby sandy seagrass beds to water around a foot deep along the shoreline. The treatments were the same as the experiment conducted in the small pool, with one addition, a freshly knocked queen conch shell. We set the 3 conch 4 meters apart from one another along the beach and allowed for a 30-minute resting period. After this period was over, we added 1 treatment next to each of the 3 conch. After waiting 30 minutes, we recorded the net movement of the conch compared to the treatment. The long-term experiment did not conclusively determine whether middens are having an effect on queen conch behavior. At one of the 3 sites, the type of treatment was significantly affecting the number of queen conch, but similar results were not observed at the other 2 sites. As a result of methodology problems and small sample sizes, the results yielded from the short-term experiment were inconclusive. However, a pattern was observed of queen conch moving farther away from the wet meat and freshly knocked shell treatments when compared to distances traveled during their resting periods. While the results could not conclusively support or deny the Midden Hypothesis, we believe that this is still a question worth investigating. Both our long-term and short-term experiments contained flaws and external factors which we had difficulty controlling for. Therefore, our results do not accurately show the effects of just middens, but are being affected by things such as migrational patterns of queen conch or simply errors made by one of the researchers. If future research could do a better job at controlling these factors, we believe that conclusive results could go a long way to improving the queen conch fishery here on South Caicos.